This video is on how to use adjectives in Spanish. You know what an adjective is. It describes a noun. She is an intelligent student. He is a great athlete. Intelligent is an adjective that describes student. Great describes athlete. Ella es una estudiante inteligente. That means she is an intelligent student. Notice that the adjective in Spanish appears in a different place in the word in relation to the noun it describes than it does in English. In English, the adjective appears before the noun that it's describing. Intelligent describes student. In English, we like to hear the description before the noun. Notice in Spanish, the adjective comes after the noun it describes. Inteligente describes estudiante. They like to hear what you're describing, that is the noun, before you describe it, inteligente. In English, it comes before. In Spanish, it comes afterwards. So remember that when using adjectives in Spanish, you will always want it to follow the noun that you're describing. But that isn't the only way that adjectives differ from adjectives in English, that is Spanish adjectives. Adjectives change in Spanish in two ways when they're used in sentences. The first way they change is by gender, masculine and feminine. You know that all words in Spanish are either masculine or feminine words. If you're not familiar with this concept, you'll need to take a look at the short video on gender in nouns in Spanish. Let's take a look at how this affects the adjectives. Él es un chico reservado. He is a very reserved boy. That means he's quiet. Ella es una chica reservada. She is a very reserved girl or quiet girl. You will notice that when it's a masculine, it'll end in an O in the masculine form. And when it ends in an O in the masculine form, if we apply it to a feminine object, it will end in A, that is A. So she is reservada. He is reservado. Any adjective ending in O in the masculine will change to A in the feminine. But not all adjectives end in O. So what do we do with the others? Él es un chico paciente. He is a patient boy. Ella es una chica paciente. She is a patient girl. Notice that when the adjectives end in E, they don't change. They're the same for masculine and feminine. Él es un chico difícil. He's a difficult boy. Ella es una chica difícil. She is a difficult girl. These are problem children. But notice when it ends in L, it still doesn't change. The masculine and feminine form are the same. Generally, if it doesn't end in O or A, it doesn't change. However, there is a small exception to that rule. Él es un chico trabajador. He's a hard-working boy. Ella es una chica trabajadora. Notice she's a hard-working girl. Notice that when the adjective ends in an OR, trabajador, hard worker, or hard-working, when it goes to the feminine form, we add an ora. We add an A on the end of it. Be careful not to put the masculine form as trabajadoro. No, it's just trabajador. And with the feminine form, if it ends in an R like this, that is an OR, we will put an A on the end for trabajadora. Oh, there is one other tricky item. Él es un chico deportista. He is a sportsy person, or athletic. Ella es una chica deportista. She is an athletic girl. Notice, you might think to say, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Gardner, this is deportista, that's feminine, it goes with chica, yes. This should be deportisto, shouldn't it? Because it's masculine. You would think so, but deportista is the only exception that I know of, maybe one of very few exceptions, where the word stays a on the end. A guy is deportista. A girl is deportista as well. This is a very rare exception, so make sure you don't get fooled. The second way that adjectives change in Spanish is by number. That is it singular or plural? Are the things you're describing just one person or one thing, or are there many things? Before we look at this, we need to review the rules of how to make things plural in Spanish. Making things plural in Spanish is really easy. Oh, this is so easy. Cuaderno, a notebook, cuadernos. Pluma, plumas, those are pens. Libro, libros, those are books. Computadora, computadoras. Oh, this is so easy. Just like in English, you just put an S on the end. Ta-da! And you're done. However, when the word ends in a consonant, we can't put on just an S like this. That doesn't make sense. Comunidades, frustraciones, paredes, almacenes. No, that doesn't make sense in Spanish. We can't have the S sound follow a consonant. So what we do in Spanish is we use a standard spacer vowel. A spacer vowel is one to separate the two sounds from each other. And the default spacer vowel in Spanish is our letter E, which is pronounced E in Spanish. And so we had an ES there. We separate the sound S from the consonant, so we have comunidades, communities. Frustraciones, frustrations. Paredes, that is walls. And almacenes, which are storage houses or warehouses. So remember that if it ends in a consonant, instead of just adding an S, you'll add an ES. And there's one other little minor detail. Here we have words that end in a consonant. They all end in Z. Lápiz is pencil, luz is light, and cicatriz is a scar. So you would normally think, oh, yes, it's a consonant. I could just add an ES on there, and it will be okay. And you're right. Except for some reason in Spanish, they don't like to have a Z in a plural word like this next to the ES. So what they do is they take out the Z and replace it with a C. So we have lápices, a lot of pencils, luces, which are lights, and cicatrices are the scars all over your body. So those are the simple rules. Just add an S if it ends in a vowel. Cuaderno, cuadernos. If it ends in a consonant, you add ES, paredes, which are walls. And if it ends in a Z, you still put the ES on there, but make sure you change the Z to a C. Okay, so now that we've reviewed our rules on adjectives, how to make plurals that is, let's see how this plays out with adjectives. Carla es una estudiante perezosa. Carla is a very lazy student. Carla y Victoria son estudiantes perezosas. Since we have more than one student here, two girls, we have an AS ending. We just put an S on the end of it. The adjectives have to be plural as well if you're describing more than one object. Carlos es un estudiante perezoso. He's a boy. Carlos y Victor, both boys, son estudiantes perezosos. Notice the only difference is we just put an S on the end. The adjective ends in a vowel, so all we have to do is just put an S on it when we're describing more than one person. Oh, but Carlos es un estudiante difícil. He is a difficult student. And Carlos y Victor son estudiantes difíciles. Notice difícil ends in an L. It ends in a consonant. And just like we discussed on the plural adjectives, when you end in a consonant here, we can't just put an S on the end of it. We have to put an ES, the spacer vowel, to separate the S from the L sound. You cannot say difíciles in Spanish. It's difíciles. So we put in that spacer vowel to separate the S from the L sound. We do that with all adjectives that end with a consonant. Here we're back to the girls again. We have Carla es una estudiante trabajadora. And notice that trabajadora is the masculine form. We put an A on for the girl, trabajadora. When we have Carla y Victoria together, son estudiantes trabajadoras. Since trabajadora ends in a vowel, all we have to do is just add an S on the end. Well, notice that when we change these adjectives to masculine, Carl es un estudiante trabajador. Notice it isn't trabajadoro, it's trabajador for the masculine form. And we take it to plural, Carl y Victor son estudiantes trabajadores. It's not trabajadoros because the masculine form ends in an R, not R-O. And therefore with this one here, if the R, we want to make it plural, we can't have trabajadores. That sound can't work in Spanish, the R and the S together. So we put in our spacer vowel that we talked about earlier, and it has to be trabajadores. That is the plural masculine form of anyone that would, any adjective that would end in an R. So now comes the exciting part. It's time for you to try using adjectives on your own in Spanish. I'm going to give you a couple of sentences in a few minutes, and I'd like you to get out a piece of paper and pause the video. See if you can move these adjectives, change the adjectives so they fit with the subjects really well in Spanish. Remember, they're going to change by number and whether they're masculine or feminine, that is by gender. And here they are. You will notice that all of the adjectives that I have right here are in the default form in Spanish. That is, they are all in masculine singular form. And you will change those according to the subject that is in the sentence. Stop the video right now, and on your piece of paper you can either write the whole sentence out if you want to, or just write the adjective as it would appear in the sentence. And then in a few minutes we'll be back together and we'll look at them together. Welcome back. We're going to check your answers right now. Let's start with number 1. La clase de español no es aburrida. La clase, it's feminine. You can tell by la clase, and therefore the ending of the adjective has to be feminine as well. Number 2. Mi amigo Juan es muy divertido. My friend John is very much fun. And you'll notice divertido, Juan is a boy, and so it stays in the masculine form. O is the ending for masculine. Divertido. Let's look at number 3. Los chicos son muy graciosos. Remember, we've got more than one boy, so it has to have an S on the end, just an S, because gracioso ends in a vowel. Number 4, las chicas son muy ordenadas. Chicas are feminine, and so we have to change it to feminine, and there's more than one, so we put an S on the end. The girls are very orderly or organized. Number 5, esta hamburguesa es sabrosa. Hamburguesa is feminine, and so will the adjective. This hamburger is delicious. Okay, let's look at some more. I don't know whether you can see the last number 10, but we'll move this in just a minute. Stop the video again. See if you can figure out these adjectives here. We'll be back in just a minute to see how you did. All right, welcome back. And we're going to start with number 6. La clase de francés es muy difícil. Difícil ends in a consonant. It doesn't have a feminine form, so it'll stay the same just as the masculine form. It is feminine. The French class is very difficult. Number 7. Las tareas de inglés siempre son fáciles. The homework assignments of English are always easy. Fácil, the feminine form, it's las tareas, the homework assignments. Fácil is the same for masculine and feminine. And so we had the ES ending. We can't say fáciles because those two sounds don't go together, so we have to put in that spacer vowel that we talked about, the default E, to separate the U and the S from each other. Fáciles, easy. Number 8, Mónica and Verónica son trabajadoras. Oh, these are both girls, and so we have to change it to the A-S. Remember, trabajadora is masculine. We have the A for the girl because it ends in an R, and then the S there because we have two girls right here. Mónica and Verónica are hard working. Number 9. Samuel y tú son demasiado trabajadores. Sam and you are too hardworking. Now notice here, the singular form is trabajador. Some people are tempted to say trabajadoros, but you just add an S. But here we can't just add an S because of the R. You can't say trabajadores. So we have to put in our standard spacer vowel, which is that E, and it's trabajadores. The A separates that R and that S sound. And our last one, Víctor es muy deportista. Victor is very sportsy-like. We're athletic. Oh, did we fool you on that one? Some people are tempted to say deportisto, but no. Remember that the deportista is the only adjective, or one of few adjectives actually, that never change. It's deportista for a guy. It's also deportista for a girl. Well, that's all for this video on working with adjectives. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.